Hey everyone, just giving everyone a few minutes to join the stream. But you're in the right place here at BrisJS. Hi everyone. If you don't know who I am, I'm Kevin Van der Beeken, and I'll be your BrisJS MC tonight. If you're a frequent listener, watcher of our live stream and have previously gone to our in-person events, thank you and welcome back. Thanks for your support. We're going to kick off into BrisJS. I will just go through some of our preamble before we get to our very important speakers. So we like to promote interactivity here. So if you've got another device available or even a second browser window or something like that, pop over into the Slido.com Q&A tool. And you can just punch in 221 as a number or scan this QR code if you're using a second device. You can join our Slido room, and that will allow you to post some questions and also participate in any polls that we throw up there. That'll promote that interactivity. When we have a speaker do their talk, at the end of it, we'll throw to any of the questions that have been left for them during their talk, and then we'll be able to get the direct feedback there as well. If you're stuck for any reason, you can't ask in anything other than the YouTube chat, I'll be ferrying some of your questions over there into the Slido as well. So do let me know if you've got any issues. But yeah, Slido.com and 221 is the number you want. So I can see a whole bunch of people coming through. That's great. Thank you very much for everyone who's joining. So we'll continue going into this here. Cool. As is the norm with all our BrisJS events, we'd like to do our acknowledgement of country. We can, as we keep going forward with this, I think it's still really important that we do this based on where we are. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the site where I'm broadcasting on from today, the Yugara and Bundjalung people, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present. Meetup is hopefully where you've registered. That gives us the ability to just sort of see participation and also keep in touch with you. So if there's any changes to the lineup, or like we've seen, we've had to change the date, we can notify you through there. So it's just kind of good to understand through that. But I do try and post those things out with Twitter as well. It's probably our most active social. So do keep a watch on those two platforms. Now, if you're not aware, there's a code of conduct at BrisJS, and it has to be a harassment-free experience for everyone. That includes online, since everyone's online and remote. Do check out our conduct page on brisjs.org. So another extremely common thing I harp on about is I really need you to submit a talk, but you can also request a talk. So if there's a topic or a subject that you're really keen to hear from some of our presenters, you may not have the knowledge or the background to present that particular topic, you can always leave a request to talk and we'll tag it as such inside our GitHub, which I'll show in a minute. But we do really need some speakers. We haven't got anyone lined up for next month. So do reach out, and if you've already posted a link in our BrisJS GitHub, follow up and let me know if you're available next month so we can start organizing early and get the notice out to everyone much earlier so that people have a bit of notice and can drum up a bit more support on the socials. But do consider anything that you've been working on or interested in recently in the very wide world of JS. Reach out and let us know. It doesn't have to be a half-hour talk. We take in 10-minute lightning talks, 20-minute regular talks, and 30-minute headliners. So we've got something that can accommodate you, and we're happy to support. If you're not aware of where these things are organized in, we do that via GitHub. They are GitHub issues. They get tagged as they get closer to the date and also to confirmation. And this helps us also pull them out via API for our BrisJS.org page. But you can also spy in there to see which have been added to the milestone for each monthly meetup to see what's coming up as it develops. But this is generally where you go and submit these as well. We usually have a nice pro forma link that I tweet out, and that's sort of, I think it's a bit.ly or a link shortening service of some description that I've forgotten right this second. So we post that link out, and the idea is it will help fill in some of the templated information just to give you a start there. But essentially, we need to know your name, not just your GitHub handle, what your talk description is, the talk title, and the months you can present it in, and an idea of the length. And then we can add you into the scheduling and can keep in touch via that platform. There's also a bunch of socials that you can track us with or communicate and leave us a message. As I mentioned, Twitter's very active, but there's also a Facebook presence, and you're on YouTube. So this is where we are today. There's also brisjs.org that will just pull together the different links that we've been mentioning tonight, as well as provide a page that pulls out all the GitHub issues that have been marked as a job posting. So we have a BrisJS job board. It's completely free, completely open. Just let us know, if you've got one in your company, or you want to spruik something that you've got going on and you want somebody to come work with you, just feel free to jump in there. It's great for individuals to help promote these kind of roles around Brisbane and help out somebody else. So we've got an increasing demand for sponsorship as well, but also at the moment because we're remote, and one of the main things we need is a Zoom Pro subscription. The company I work for, PCCW Global, has been kind enough to continue sponsoring that throughout the COVID break and move to live streaming. So yeah, there's also a position available here. You can come work with me directly on my team. We're continuing to hire senior or mid JavaScript devs. Can be back-end, front-end, full stack, anything. And it's also a fairly wide role there. It's part of the system architecture and engineering team of the managed services agile release train that we run inside PCCW Global. It's an evolving train, and we're trying to create really interesting innovation in there. So I'd be really excited to work with some more of you cool Brisbane peeps. It's remote, and we also like to get into the office on if you're located in Brisbane. We like to meet up once a week and have lunch together, do those kinds of things as well whenever we're not in lockdown. So it's open, and I'd love to see what you think about it. The job is listed on the BrisJS job board, and that link, there's a git.io link there, which is GitHub shortening service, in case you're interested in some of the details of that role. So it'd be cool to come work with me, and I hope to see your email soon. So over the last few months, we actually had the book giveaway by Ashley Davis. And I'm proud to say that we've got a couple of winners for that particular book, and we'll be able to get in touch with you soon. So Warren Scott and Jeffrey Shimbo, you are the lucky winners. So thank you very much for participating in our Slido poll and answering questions about the presentation that Ashley did a couple of BrisJSs ago. You've scored yourself a book. So I'll send you out an email, and you've got a code to be able to go and redeem that one. So congrats. Okay, without further delay, we've got a really cool panel on tonight. So Torsten is going to be taking you through an introduction to Vue. We're also going to get Ali on board to tell us all about using React with Solidity blockchain contracts. I love the title, Blockparty, that's cool. Bangle JS, so, if you've been playing at home and seeing that these talks have been evolving rapidly, so the last two speakers have actually gone and changed their talks at the last minute, and I'm here for it because these are cool topics actually. So I'm pretty keen. So Bangle JS, and if people know me well, I'm kind of a hardware nerd in where running JavaScript is concerned. Just an enthusiast, of course. So this is a watch that runs JavaScript. So Josh has got a lightning talk to take us through that one as well. So some really cool talks tonight. So let's crack into it. I'm going to stop sharing, and I will throw it to Torsten, who'll take us through Vue JS. Torsten, are you there?
Yeah. Can you start sharing my video?
Okay. There we go. Is your video coming through? There's your video.
Hey everyone. Yeah.
Great to have you on board.
Yeah, thanks for, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak about my love and passion for Vue JS. Thank you to the BrisJS team for the invitation. That is awesome. And been a follower, but I've not been very active. Also, that's the first time I actually present something, so be kind to me, please.
Thrilled to have you. Thanks so much.
Yeah. So yeah, my name is Torsten. I'm actually from Germany and came to Brisbane a bit more than 10 years ago. Left the cold Germany to come to a very cold winter in Brisbane now. No, it's not true. So I really enjoy the lifestyle especially in Brisbane. I love the weather, and there's a bit of passion between coding, filmmaking, photography, off-roading. Like I collected a bunch of new hobbies. Some of them I put on hold because now I have a little 3-year-old little boy, which I really, really love. But I still have passion for coding, and I'm doing this every day, and I really want to share my knowledge and experiences and grievances, and yeah, I just want to share it, and hope some of you can follow me along the way.
Sounds great.
Yeah. All right. So Vue JS. I've been working with Vue JS a bit more than 3 years. Started it with a company doing a greenfield project for an e-commerce suite that included a storefront, a backend, included also a really nice point of sales that we filled with Vue JS. We built a lot of other stuff as well. And since January last year, I'm working for Bridge, which is an on-demand transport platform similar to Uber, but for mass transportation, for buses picking up many, many people. And we're building basically the operations panel for that to follow the routes of buses, manage and schedule travelers and so on, building this with Vue JS. I'm the lead developer, and I've learned a lot during this journey building a platform that is multi-tenancy, brandable, and also is based on reusable components and modules. And although I cannot show everything of that right now, I want to give you just a brief introduction to Vue.js. I hope there will be time for follow-up where I can show you just a few more, or a lot more things about architectural decision-making on Vue.js. So there's not only just PWS services, websites, single-page websites. There's also Ionic framework that is bundled with Vue.js, so you can actually build mobile apps that almost act natively. They're quite fast now these days. Yeah, so I've prepared a little demo for you guys, which is, I'm not sure you can see my screen here. Is it visible? Can I get a yes?
We can definitely see a screen. It's just a little small on the text size.
Oh, text size, yeah. Maybe I can zoom in here. Is it better?
That helps on the right.
Okay, so the left-hand side will be also better. So left-hand side. So this is Vue.js that I just quickly wrapped up maybe an hour ago with the Vue CLI. So when you want to start with a Vue.js project, I would heavily say you should start with the Vue CLI. So have a look for Vue CLI. It's a very easy to install little helper. It has an actual UI as well on the browser side. So once you install it globally as an npm or yarn project, you can just type in Vue UI, and there it leads you through creating your first Vue.js application, and then asks you a bunch of questions. For example, what do you prefer? What kind of linting do you want? What kind of CSS preprocessor do you like? Sass or SCSS, for example. Would you like to install the state management, which is called Vuex? You would like to install the router that enables your routing through the OTM, and so on. So very easy to start with is the Vue CLI. And for documentation, just go to vuejs.org and you see left-hand panel, introduction, and then all the nice things that you have about Vue.js. So let's have a quick look at one of the components in Vue.js, which is a .vue file. It's called a single file component, which includes the markup, it includes the styling and the style CSS, and includes the actual code, which is the script part. Let's have a look at the. So every Vue.js file starts with a template. In the template container, you have your normal HTML markdown. Then you have your script part that includes your business logic, binding variables, and calling components. And you can have, this is optional as well. It comes from the get-go with the Vue CLI with SCSS support. You can have your styling part here. Your first main entry point is always the main.js. And here you set up the actual Vue app. You have a starting app container, which is the app.vue. This is where is your main starting point to create your app. If you want, you have a router that enables your routing for the app. Store is the Vuex store, which I'm not going into detail today. I'm going to show this a little bit later, maybe in a follow-up. And yeah, just the mounting of the application. So let's have a quick look at the Vue first. So app.vue. In this case, we have one that uses a router to navigate through pages. And we have a standard route here as well, which we set up in routes. Then in router.vue, everything that you have in here will be, in your routes will be rendered in the router.vue. Furthermore, in this part here, you have a very basic setup for your app, your main font, a link color, and yeah, just a little bit of scaffolding. Now, I started breaking down components always in modules. So if you have different pages for your app, I heavily suggest to start with modules. Calling them modules, make a module folder, and then for each side, each page in your website, it could be a settings page, an about us page, a home. It could be all different modules. Reason is that you can then package up your module with their own routes, and I'll show you this one. So there's always a router.js, just one router.js, it's the main router, where you import routes from submodules. So in this case, for example, we have only one module, is the dashboard, and in dashboard we define a couple of routes, or just two, basically, two routes that you can go to. let's say, a route path. In our case here, we don't have a path. If you would call it dashboard here, you could actually route to dashboard here. This gives you just a little bit of context. And this route, it's really just an array that you export, is going to be imported in your main router file. So in this case, this is your main router. It's only one in your whole app. You have a routes array, and we import our routes in the dashboard from our module. That means if you have multiple modules, you can just import all your module routes in here. Makes it nice and easy to scaffold your whole app. And the same can also happen with the store. So you could have a sub-store for each of your modules, which then is connected by a main store. That means you have namespace stores throughout the app, and each store can talk to another store. If you have, for example, the settings page, want to talk to your user page, and want to know what's your username. That's an easy way to scaffold this. So quickly back to the demo. So in this case here, we have the app view. Let's have a quick look at the router. We're going to the dashboard routes. At the dashboard routes, we're going to the dashboard base. Again, we're starting with a router view. This is just replacing content from your main view. The main view is the dashboard. So this is the dashboard. This is the main entry point. You can see this, our H1 tag. We have a BrisJS. Sorry, that's the wrong one. Going with this one. So the first one is importing assets. Very interesting is that you can import assets from the assets folder via call it like a tag. And you can see here, instead of making it a source, this is a static tag. And because we have JavaScript here, we need to make it a dynamic tag. So use a column. Putting in the column. Now you can use JS in here. Now you can see we have our first component here, hello world component, which has a title prop. And you can see this is a static prop. So you can just put in a string. Then we have two dynamic props, which is the message index, just an index number. And we have a message, which in our case is a random message coming from an array. I just increase my font size. I did that. 1 second. See it better? Let's see. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for that.
Yep, no worries. So our hello world component, you can see we imported actually from another folder. So in dashboard / components, because we might want to reuse that, we made it its own component, hello world. Again, we set up a couple of props. So if we have a look at the hello world component, first we check the script part. So in the script part, we have props. These are the props that this component is accepting, and we're also setting the type. So the title is a string, the message index is a number, and the message itself is a string. We can also set defaults. So if the prop is not required, this one is a required one, it will bark at you and tell you, hey, you don't give a prop, it will tell you there's a problem. But you can also set defaults. So if you have a default, you don't have to give where you implement the component. You don't have to give it a property. You can just set a default here as well. Okay, let's go back to home one. Message index, random message. These are reactive variables. So everything that you want to be reactive goes into the data part in your script part. Data, as you can see, is an object. It returns. It's a function. It returns multiple variables. These become now by default reactive. That means whenever something in the app changes or in your runtime changes the value of those, it will trickle down through the whole application. So in this case, you can see we have a bunch of messages here, right? So it's a whole array of messages that we pass in here. And we're not passing in the whole object. We have something that's called that's a Vue specific thing, a computed property. So computed properties is set up here. Computed, you can have like a bunch of them. Message 1 and 2 and so on. The computed property lets you get the value from another prop, for example, or its own data attributes, its own reactive properties, and you do something with it. In this case, we take the custom message array, but we only take a specific item on it from it. So in that case, we're looking for the message index. The message index here at the moment is 0, but when this app is mounted, that's one of the life cycles we have through this app. So a Vue JS app has multiple life cycles, or range of life cycles that it goes through, that you can do something through it. Like there's created. Created is when this component is just basically not mounted but created. So component is baked together, but it's not in the browser available. It's not, there's no DOM yet. So it's not in the DOM. Mounted means that this component now is part of the DOM. You can now mess with the DOM. You can do change DOM the way you want. So in mounted, we run a method. We call it start message interval. So methods are also its own object here. These are a bunch of methods that we have in this single file component. In our case, when this component mounted, we start an interval. We call it message interval. And what we do here is we just read the amount of the total messages that we have in the array, which is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, minus 1 because it starts at 0. And then we set the message index randomly by the amount of messages. So it will be between 0 and 5 every 3 seconds. When this component mounts, you can see it. So in a refresh, it will automatically also I started here. It will automatically update every 3 seconds. It's fitting in, fitting out. So now I put it into the method because we want to stop this as soon as you press edit. So you can see there's a button here, and we have an on-click handler. So this one here is binding basically a method to a click event. This is again very widget specific. Let's call it a Vue magic thing. We say here toggle edit messages. So toggle edit messages again is a method. What we do here is if edit messages is false, which is our current state, we're gonna stop the interval because we don't want this moving anymore, and we make edit messages, which is a reactive value, make it true. If you look at edit messages, there's a template condition here. So if edit messages is true, we're gonna show like an edit window, like another subcomponent. So click on edit, you can see it's stopped now. Now we see a subcomponent. So the component is here, mounted in here, edit messages. We also have to mention it here in the components. So this is a new component that we would want to use within this template. Also important, you can see the naming of these is the folders, the files. And see here, everything is the same, so you can easily follow through, because whenever you build something, you have to make sure that other developers can follow your code. So yeah, okay, so you click the button, it changes the reactive value for edit messages to true. It stops the randomization of the string, and now I can see you can start editing. So let's have a look at edit messages. First, we have a look what's in here actually. So we're passing in a whole array of our messages. Custom messages, you can see here, custom messages, this one here, we're passing it in as just messages. And we're also passing in a Vue model. And a Vue model is basically a reactive two-way binding. That means I can pass properties not only towards it, it also accepts any changes coming back from this child component to the parent, updates the parent. So, and because in this case, in this demo, I want to show you 2 ways. I want to show you two-way binding with the model to update inside back and forth, but I also want to show you how event emitting works. So let's have a look at edit messages. I hope it's still big enough. So this is our edit messages component. We have a header, edit messages. We have a listing. We have, again, reactive properties. So one is messages, which we use to run the v4 loop. Again, that's a Vue JS thing. v4 is basically looping through arrays. It's like a simplified for each. In that case, always make sure you are run through whatever array you are. You're passing in our case, messages, or so normally it would be messages. Hopefully, I'm not too fast for you guys. So messages would just work. Going through all the messages that we pass in as properties, but also because we're having a Vue model here, we can also go through value. So if we model automatically creates a property on the child component called value. So in our case, we just want to get the value. It's the exact same data. It's the same here. We're passing in custom messages. So what happens here now is very important. Also, we also always have to give a key. This is important for Vue JS to know if there's any changes against a single item, because now we have a list of items. I show you first the emitter. So in that case here, we're binding on this little cross here, we're binding a click handler, which is called delete message. We're taking the index of that element and we emit an event back up to the parent component, which is called delete message. And we're passing in the message index. If we go back here, edit messages, this is the emit handler. This one looks for any emits that are called delete message. And if that happens, it runs again a method. So what we have in the method here is delete message, which basically just goes to custom message and takes out one element out of this list. So if I click on this one, you can see how this appears from basically passing or sending a message to the parent component and say, hey, delete this please with this index. Now, I show another thing. At the moment, as I said, we're showing messages here. Instead of just showing the message, we can make this an input field and passing a V model as a value, or its value as a V model. Now we have a V model here that is a reactive two-way binding. So when I change now anything here, let's have a look what's actually active. This one. You can see how this automatically updates the parent component. So that's all you have to do to make a form. It makes it super easy to handle things. So you're not using only event emitters. So this is not necessary right now to do that. You can just use the model. That makes it very, very easy to communicate between your components if they're directly connected. If you have components that are not directly connected, you're gonna use most likely Vuex, which is a state manager that handles basically different states and different behaviors between different components that are not directly connected to each other. But I think we should get to this at a later stage. So I think that's all I wanted to show for today. Just want to give you a small little intro. If you're interested, I can push up this little example to GitHub. If you want to know a lot more, because there is like 1000% more on this, just leave a comment, let me know, and I'm happy to show you more examples. Or if you get stuck somewhere in the code, I'm happy to help you out and we can have a look at it together. That's it, wrapping it up right now. Thank you very much for listening, and moving on to the next two. I think Ali, right? Ali is the next speaker.
Well, no, we're going to do some Q&A. You get to stay on for a little bit. We've got a couple of questions for you. Thanks so much for your talk. That was wonderful. That gives people a bit of an overview of how easy it is to go and hack up a great quick example there with Vue. So I think that was really valuable. There's a couple of questions there. The first one here is, what is the advantage of Vue over other frameworks? Oh, Torsten, you're muted and you're gone. We're going to do some Q&A with you.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't hear you. Yeah.
All good. Are we back? All right. Yeah. Okay, cool. The first question there is, what is the advantage of Vue over other frameworks?
So in our case, it is, we want to enable web designers also to go into the code and change basically the HTML markup without being too scared of seeing JSX. That is one of the things. The other things is that I believe the documentation of Vue JS is way more straightforward and more concise, because it's basically built by Alan Lewis, by him and a small team, while React.js is a very, very widespread ecosystem. So, which gives you a lot more plugins, but I think Vue JS is also catching up with it.
Yeah, good points. One question here that we had was, does Vue have the same concept of a virtual DOM.
Yes, it has. It has a shadow DOM that it basically updates behind the scenes and only pushes updates when it's necessary. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so we've got that same browser support in there, and same as React and other frameworks utilizing the virtual DOM. So to React users, for example, that are keen to move to Vue or to try out Vue in the very least, can you explain some of the commonalities?
Commonalities are definitely the state management. So Redux is very similar to Vuex. You have your actions, mutations, you have your state, and you have your getters. So also properties, I think the same. Not sure about, I think React hooks are a little bit a different concept from Vuex, but I also have a couple of people in my team who came from React heavily, and they're up and running in Vue JS within like 2-3 days. So they were really, really quick picking that up. So don't be scared.
That's a good endorsement. All right, thank you very much. That's fantastic, and you appreciate your time there and answering some of those questions. If you've got any more questions, folks, we'll have an opportunity there at the end, at least, to be able to circle back if you've left any more, or if you thought about it over the next few talks as well. But yeah, stay on the live stream. We've got we'll be able to answer your questions on the chat there as well. But again, thank you. That was great. We'll be able to jump into our next speaker now as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. All good. Yeah, so now, without further delay, we'll jump in and have a chat to Ali. Ali comes to us from IBM, and she's going to be giving us a demo there on Blockparty, which I introduced earlier. Hi, Ali.
Hey, Kevin. Thank you for inviting me here today. Yeah, Blockparty, or I've renamed it The Price is Right, because we're going to have a go at getting some price feeds come through from a Solidity contract powered by Chainlink. I'll explain all that as well.
Cool.
But yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, awesome to have you. So yeah, feel free to take it away anytime.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, sound check obviously working. So I'll share my screen.
Yes. Thank you.
Screen check. So yep. How are we going with screen? All good?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So the price is right. The blockchain price feed edition. So today I'm going to be connecting React to a blockchain contracts using a JavaScript library called Web3. So we're going to create something like this, basically using Next.js, which is kind of a server-side rendering package. Well, not a rendering package. It's a framework around React. So this is the Next documentation. Pretty easy to get up and started with that. I'm going to do this from scratch, including deploying my contracts so you can see everything that's going on. Welcome to country, obviously. We've already done that, but I'd just like to begin by acknowledging the Boonwurrung Boon Wurrung people from Melbourne, which is where I am today, and pay respects to elders past and present. So I'm Ali as well, before we get too far into it. Not Troy McClure, not the Price is Right host. I'm Ali, developer advocate at IBM, as Kevin mentioned. I do a lot of things. Feel free to connect with me on socials, Ali Haire on LinkedIn, or Developer Ali on Twitter and Insta, and who knows what else I'm on at the moment. So the project architecture that I'm going to take you through, pretty basic project. We are going to deploy a really basic Solidity contract, which is what is a Solidity contract is basically an Ethereum code. It just tells, it's just a code base. It's a language like Java, like JavaScript is. It's a language for blockchain though, basically. So I'm going to deploy a really basic one that gets Chainlink price feed, Oracle data, to a test net, so we don't have to use real Ethereum, because have you seen the price of Ethereum these days, to deploy this contract and test it. And then I'm going to use Next.js with React front end and the Web3 library package to get that data into my front end. And that's it. So I'm just going to get into the coding, I think. My project framework, I'm using Truffle to deploy this backend contract. So I've got that deployed locally. As you can see, I've got nothing in my folder at the moment. So I'm going to actually create a new Next app, which I need npx for. So npx create next app. So it's super simple. And the reason I'm using next is because it gives me access to some server-side packages. So I can kind of do some sneaky things and server render some pages. I can also like get my backend contracts on the testnet, which is also a local host without any CORS issues. So Next is really good for things like that. And not only that, but if anyone's used Next before, you'll realize that this page is actually the page that Next.js kind of deploys with out of the box. So I've stolen all their styling and just changed it to my liking. So we don't want to have to go through the Next.js styling today as well. So did we just get that in the folder, or am I in a wrong folder? I think I might have accidentally put that in the trash. So I started one before and now I will have to do that all again. So the magic of live coding, don't you love it? Oops. There's two of them. So everyone gets to watch me fumble around with my code live, which is always great. Okay, so now I'm in the right package. So who knows where that other one went? So let's try that again. I'm just going to create a next app called BrisJS. Already went through why I'm doing that. Just while we're waiting as well, I've installed the Truffle suite, which you can install locally using your Node package manager as well. And I'm going to use that to deploy my contracts. So I'm going to init a project in this BrisJS folder with Truffle, and that's what I'm going to use to deploy my contracts. So I'll just go into that folder and not make the same mistake we just did before. Just check we're in the right one. We are, so beautiful. So I'm just going to do Truffle init on this as well to get all the packages I want. And while we're doing that, if you notice, Next.js kind of created a pages route for me. So I noticed Torsten was discussing before how to kind of, organize your folders. Well, Next.js has a really particular way of organizing their folders. So it's kind of tells you how you have to do it a little bit, which is kind of cool and maybe sometimes annoying, but up to you. So the cool thing with Next.js though is, like I said, we've already got don't want to see that, I want to see my terminal. We've already got a site up and running that we can just use npm run, and I'll use dev, which may be a new concept for you, but if we have a look in the package JSON, there's kind of a run dev script that you can run, and it runs next dev. I actually have to cd into the folder to do that, so thanks for reminding me, guys. Just kidding. So npm run dev, and we'll have a look at what that brings up on the front end, which we'll just wait for it. And as you can see as well, I'll go back to Truffle. Truffle has installed, and it's put in a few things like contracts, our migrations, and this special Truffle config file. So I'm going to use this Truffle config file, and I'm not going to do it from scratch. I'm just going to do it from one I deployed earlier. And I'm going to grab the kind of deploy files as well as the Solidity file I made. And I'll have all this up on my GitHub as well. So if you do want to kind of do this at home and try it out for yourself, you'll be able to do that. But I'm just going to put in the initialize folder where I want my compiler to go. And actually, just before I start that, I also need a few more packages to do that. And sorry, guys, my computer's just running a little slow there, but there we go. So here's our like pre-built Next.js page that I'm going to turn into our lovely price feed. Alrighty, so just before I do that, I am going to install a couple more files. So npm install. I'm going to install .m because everyone needs a .m file if you're going to git commit anything. You'll actually notice as well that Next.js installs with a git ignore file, which is kind of cool. So you don't have to worry about doing that yourself. I think create reactive does too, can't remember. I'm also going to install the Web3 library that we need. and I'm going to install this wallet provider that will hook me up to my blockchain contract on the testnet as well. So we won't worry about that too much because it's not JavaScript exactly, but we do need that to config. And where I'm getting the prices from is a company called Chainlink, and they actually do a great job of bringing all blockchain and web data to the blockchain. So I'm going to use their Oracle feeds, which come from multiple different sources, and then test the validity of all that data. So if one's like way out, you're not going to like show the wrong price. It's a verifiable source of truth, basically. So I'm going to use that to get feeds as well. So while I'm installing some of those libraries that I just told you about, I'm just going to set up my Solidity compiler. It is, sorry, Sol-C, I shouldn't be saying Sol-C. My Solidity compiler, so we can compile the contracts. So I'm just gonna, it's actually up to version 8 at the moment, but I'm using version 0.6.7 for this one, just because I've tested it out on that one. That's really the only reason. You could definitely update that. And my network, which I need to create, and apologies guys, I'm a little bit sick at the moment, so sorry about the raspy voice as well. I'm just going to, whoops, not a new folder. I'm just going to create a new file as well for our .m variables, which I'm going to grab from another file that I used earlier. And just a quick note on .m variables here. Yeah, I'm just, that MetaMask seed phase, whatever, if you use it like it's all testnet data, there's nothing in there, so that's fine. If you do use .m with next projects though, and you want your front, and you want to be able to connect, you've got to make sure that you put this next public key phrase in front of it, so that next can use it. So that's pretty important on next. And all I've put in here is my address where I'm going to deploy the contracts. So you can make your own Infura account to test these contracts and deploy them to there. We don't actually have a deployed contract address yet. And this is my seed phrase for a wallet of mine, which you should never share with anyone. But because that's a testnet one, you can have all my free testnet app if you like. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. Alrighty, so that is pretty much our config for our backend. Now I'm just going to show you as well the contract that I'm using. I just want to make sure that I'm getting the right contract out here because I don't want to lead you astray. So I'm going to make a new contract and I'm going to call it Chainlink price feeds .sol because it's a Solidity file. And this is the file. So basically, I mean, it's like any object-oriented language. You can see this is a contract, which is what we call blockchain contracts, because they're permanently stored. And it's really got one function, which is to get the latest price. And you insert an asset address of that price. So every asset on the blockchain has an address, a hex address, and it's going to return with multiple pieces of information. So I'm returning with the price, the round ID, which means you can look up historical data. If you knew the round ID of this round, you can look up previous IDs and things like that. The number of decimals that come back in this price feed, and you'll see why that's useful later, and the description of that asset. So I've pulled out the asset addresses of some, relevant assets that we're going to look at, I guess, crypto assets that we're going to look at. But basically, only reason I'm showing you this is to show you that there's only really one function on the back end, and also to show you how kind of easy it is to make a Solidity contract. The only other thing we need to do now is in migrations, which I'm not sure why they're called migrations because it's the deploy script. I'm going to make a deploy script for that contract that I've just made. I'm just going to call it to deploy migrations because I'm really original. Oops, we actually have to, it's actually a JS file, so I need to finish naming that. I'm not used to working in big font, obviously. Maybe I should deploy migrations. And all I'm going to put in here is I'm going to get that contract that I just made, but I will get the compiled version of it. So what happens when I run Truffle migrate is that it will compile it, create a build folder, and put the compiled version of that contract into that build folder. And we'll use that on the front end as well. So that's a pretty important step. And then export it. I mean, you've seen the export function in multiple JavaScript languages, not languages or frameworks. So that should be pretty familiar to you. So let's have a go at compiling it. I'm just going to use Truffle Compile. This is a globally installed CLI Truffle on my computer. So I've just gone, I think it's npm truffle-g install or whatever, npm install-g truffle. You get the idea. You can look that up anyway. So this successfully compiled. It's just giving me a few warnings about some unused integers. So nothing wrong there. And now I'm going to have a go at migrating it, not deploying it. Even I get confused. Truffle migrate. Whoops. I'm going to stop that because if you were paying attention, when I copy pasted this in, I actually haven't set up my hardware wallet on here. And I also need to make sure I tell Truffle migrate which network I want to deploy to. So firstly, I am going to actually set up my hardware wallet to connect with this. And sorry if this is getting a little confusing, but I'm hoping like if this is a path you want to go down, this will be kind of a full way to do it. If you want to come back to this, and I think these are recorded and put on the website. So if you wanted to come back to this and you've had a go at it yourself, then maybe that will be helpful. And feel free to ask any questions as we go along as well. I'll try and answer them as best I can. So the hardware wallet, that's what's going to connect us to our network. And I've just put in those env variables, the environment variables that I set up earlier in there. So now we'll be able to migrate it. Now I want to migrate it to the Rinkeby network, it's called. There's quite a few test nets. There's Rinkeby, Coven. I think there's a couple of others, but I'm going to deploy this on the Rinkeby network because I've set up an account there. So let's see how we go with that. Did I save that file? Because it probably isn't going to do it otherwise. Yep, looks like what's going on there. Well, it's always fun when your live code doesn't work. So unknown argument and format passed to HT wallet, check the configuration. Alrighty, I'll check my configuration. My configuration looks pretty good though, gotta say. Just gonna double check with my hidden code on the screen, which
is it because you prefix them with the next public for your env vars?
Ah, awesome. See, I love having a you're correct. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Voice from the sky, AI Copilot.
I love it. I love it. So I don't think I prefaced that one. I think I just prefaced this one. Thank you. Thank you. I love crowdsourcing my coding mistakes. Always good. So we'll try that again. So this is looking good so far. And when we do that, we're going to put it into our next public deployed address. And that's really all there is to compiling and setting up a backend, basically. I guess at its core, that's kind of what you could call blockchain, decentralized backend, which is kind of cool. And then we'll move on to the actual JavaScript, which is what you're all here to see as well, I guess. So on the JavaScript side, we do have some setup to do on that side as well. So we are going to start by setting up some contracts under this API folder that they give us. So I'll just create a new file in case you have more than one contract. You might want to have a folder called contracts. I'm also going to set up a folder called utils, where I'm going to kind of put some config for the WebJS in there. So this is pretty cool. We're deploying to Rinkeby. We've got things on the blockchain, never to be destroyed again. Yeah, it's a Blockparty already, right? Just kidding. Okay, cool. One other thing I am going to do is just set up, I was mentioning those mapping addresses before as well. So I'm just going to set up under this API a new file called mappings to map, so we know what addresses we're trying to find from the blockchain. So I've set these up earlier. I'm going to get rid of this one because that's really for error handling and checking out error handling. I'm just setting this up as an, because this is a React and JavaScript framework, export const address mappings, and these are the Rinkeby addresses for these assets, which I'm also giving a name to. It's not really necessary because they do come back from the blockchain with a name. But I'm just naming them so I know which ones they are, basically. Let's see if our contract's deployed now, which I think it has, which is awesome. So we've deployed our Chainlink price feed now. So we can get our contract address here, and I'm just going to chuck that into our end file so we can use it on our front end. We don't need our end file anymore, so I'll get rid of that. I've shown you our mappings file. And like I said, on the GitHub, there's a link to, if you want to find those mappings, you can have a look at that. I like to comment things. So this is all our backend done, and we've already proved that kind of works. And if we have a look here, we've got a build folder now. So there's our built files, and you'll notice there's like 3. So there's the migrations one that comes with Truffle. There's a Chainlink price feed one that we made, and there's this aggregator v3 interface. So that is what I brought into my contract right up the top here in order to get access to the price feeds. So it's also compiled for me too. So sorry guys, just got a frog in my throat, or maybe 3 or 4 lately, but I'm in Melbourne, so it's okay. It's probably not COVID. Last year though. Anyway, moving on, let's connect our front end to this. So first thing I want to do is probably connect Web3, which we installed earlier, if you might recall. So I'm just going to clear that console there. And I am going to, I'll create a new file. And I'm only doing this for separation of kind of state. You could just import this all in your one index file, but to do things properly, I think it's a bit neater to do it this way. So I'm going to create a Web3 file, which is what we're going to use to connect to our backend. I'm not going to code this all at once. So basically, but I will tell you what this code is. So we're importing Web3 from Web3. We downloaded that from Node earlier. And then we're checking if we already have an injected Ethereum library in our window. So for example, if a user's using MetaMask or something, if you've heard of MetaMask, this is MetaMask here, the little fox. If a user's using MetaMask already, it'll probably use that library. Otherwise, we're going to use our Rinkeby network provider, which is why I'm on this page, because I want to show you that this still works even without MetaMask being connected. So it will use this backend address, and it's got that next public in it. So awesome. We don't have to change that one. So that's basically it for connecting Web3 to our backend. And then we also want to import our contract. So we want to know what's in our Chainlink price feed contract. And here's one I prepared earlier as well. So I'm going to import Web3 because we need that in order to get that connection link between the blockchain, or between our backend, we could call it, and our front end. And I'm going to import this built folder from the built contracts in Truffle. So I'm importing this Chainlink, the built and compiled version of this Chainlink contract from my build folder here. So obviously you need to have a build. I'll just save that file as well. Sorry, a little dot there. And this is just, you know, how you do it basically. And you can have a look at the Web3 library. The docs are up on the library as well for what this actually does. But basically we've done that now. So, I mean, let's see if we're connected, shall we? Moment of truth, really. So I'm going to go into my index file and I'm just going to console out at the top of this. And actually, I'm going to change this from a function because I am very used to the fat arrow functions in React. So, and also we're going to need it later. So I'm just going to change this over to a functional component and save that. And then let's just console log out, see if we get, well, we better import it first, or we're probably not going to get it, are we? I'm just going to import two things, and that is Web3, which we just created, and that chain link price feed contract, which we also just created. And let's see if we can get this contract and Web3 and see what they look like on our front end. So I put that under utils, so I will just change the naming for that, and the other one looks right. Let's refresh this one. Chain link, is that correct? Chain link price feed .js, that looks good to me. Can't see any errors in that. What's it talking about?
It's chain link price feeds with an S.
This community support, I love it. Thank you.
No problem.
This is when you copy and paste, isn't it? Never copy and paste from Stack Overflow is probably the lesson here. Let's see if that one's working. Okay, so this is actually in my contract, which I probably also spelt wrong. So let's change that one too. So this is actually called chain link price feed. So that should be fine. Are we up a level though? I'm going to start this from scratch, to be honest.
I think Web3 is in the utils folder.
Ah, you are correct. So awesome.
That should probably be double dot there.
I think you're right. Oh, well, now we don't have a local host at all, so oops, probably 3,000 too. What have we got as an error here now? Oh no, I think we're good. Contract chain link price feeds. I changed that to
Feeds with an S. That was
I
Kevin's contribution.
Yeah. So I will go back to index, change this back. This doesn't exist. Was it feeds with an S? Yes. Oh, why did I do that to myself? The magic of live demos. Hey, there we go. All right, so awesome. So we can see, and I'll try and zoom in on that a bit so you guys can also see. We've got a Web3 object here, which has a bunch of stuff, which you can look at your own leisure if you like, and the contract that we created as well. Also got a bunch of stuff. But the main one we're looking for on this contract is this method. So we can see that we've got a get latest price with an address parameter method on this object. So all good. I reckon we can probably try and get our data now. And one of the reasons I chose Web3 actually to try and get this data, sorry, Next.js to try and get this data is actually because it comes with this get initial props function, which I am going to use. So this get initial props function. It's a server-side rendering function for static pages, basically. So it'll get the props before it renders the page, which is pretty cool. I could also use, and you can go this way, and I've tried it, it works too. You could also use hooks. So you could use useEffect with useState to get these props as well. But I kind of like how we can just reload this page with a single line to get all this info again, if we want to, which is kind of a cheat, I know, but still. So let's try and get these. So this is going to be an async function, obviously. So how about we try and get a price? So let's say let price equals our chain link price feed contract, the methods on that chain link price feed contract, get latest price, which is one of our methods. And now I'll just grab an address from one of those mappings I did earlier, if I can find it. There we go. Let's try and get the USD price right now. So get latest price, and then we are going to, because we're not mutating anything, so the call function is like a view function in HTTP, you could call it. So it's a getter function, whereas a send function would be your post or your update function in HTTP language, I suppose you would say. Excuse me, guys. So let's see if that works, I guess. So if price works, we'll return price. We'll return that as an object, so it'll be price. And what's going on here? So do I need a catch block? All right, and I've got my ESLint set up so that I changed it nicely. And to get that prop into our home function, I'm just going to pull it out. So you could use props here, but instead, because I know exactly what props I'm getting in here, I'm just going to call out price, and then I'll console log that as well. So we might just get rid of this one. So we'll just verify that we're getting this in and see what data comes back with it. I really don't like that. It's kind of annoying. So let's see what happens here. All right, awesome. So price is undefined. Not awesome.
I think you missed an I in initial.
Did I?
Initial props, yeah.
All righty, let's have a look at that. Yes, I did. Geez, what would I do without you guys tonight?
It's ESLint as a service.
My typos. Actually, I'm going to put an await in here too. So, because this is outside of the block as well. ESLint as a service. I love that. Alrighty, let's try that again, shall we? Which is not ideal. Turn null on catch, so that's annoying. All right, I'm just going to do this the old-fashioned way and check this in my useEffect, in a useEffect function. So nothing like live coding to do everything wrong in.
Live dangerously.
I know, right? Living on the edge here, living on the edge. So this is the other way to do it if you wanted to do it without the get initial props function, which I honestly think I'm just doing something wrong with my call here, which is a bit annoying, but anyway, that's okay. So you can't use async functions inside of useEffect. So to get around that, we're going to create a second function. And I'm just going to call this get a price instead. And I'm going to create that function. So really you'd pass an asset address here. No, I'll put it in. If we know we're passing that as a parameter. And then I will call the contract again here. So const price equals await chain link price feed dot methods dot get latest price. Yeah, it doesn't come up with that. So let's spell it right, shall we? Price. And that'll be the asset address that I pass in. And I'll call that. And if this goes wrong, I will have to have a quick check on things. And then we'll just console log it out here, which it will probably be a promise. So we'll just check on that though. So get a price. We're going to need an asset address for that. So we're just going to pass in that asset address that we had here. It's not finding the address. All right, so there's a problem with our Web3 library here. For some reason, we are not connecting to the address. Actually, we might need to start the next server again for that to happen properly, which might just be the issue. If in doubt, turn it off and on again. Is always good. At least we got a better error message doing it that way. It's kind of hard with get initial props if you haven't tested it already to see what might be going wrong, unless you put in a good catch call, which I didn't. Okay, so we are getting a price object back now, and it comes back kind of weirdly. So this is one of the quirks of Solidity. Solidity doesn't really return objects. I've kind of forced it to return an object, but it also returns this array with the same data in it. But you can see here we are getting back those 4 values that we were looking for earlier. So that's good. Turning it off and on again worked. Hurrah. So that's all it was. Awesome. So we can probably go back to using the get initial props function for this one as well. We've kind of started now, haven't we? So you can do it this way as well. And I'm going to prove that that also works by just redoing it. Have I got 2 prices defined here actually? So console logging in. And we're also console logging the price up here. Cool. So one of these is undefined. And it is the initial props. Well, I'm not entirely sure why. So we're just going to go with the use effect one for now. Works on my machine. I'll have it up on the GitHub, but because this one's working and we're live, let's just go with this get a price method. So we don't just want one price here though, because that's kind of useless, right? So let's import all those address mappings that we made earlier. Oops. I did want address mappings. Thank you, React. Thank you, Linda. From, and I do want to spell it right. Where did I say those address mappings in the API? Didn't I? Mappings, beautiful. All right. So instead of just getting one price in our use effect here, we really want to get multiple prices. So let's make a function that does that for us. So we're going to map through the data in this one. We can't put a weight in there. So I'm going to map through all the data in this one and get all the prices that are in our mappings array. And again, we're going to use the async if I can spell it. Seeing a theme here. Someone needs to lint my fingers or something. Did I spell that right? Nope. All right, let's get all the prices, shall we? Awesome. I spelled it right this time. So I'm going to return them as data promises to begin with. We're going to map over all those address mappings. And don't forget that I called them Rinkeby, just in case I had multiple networks that I wanted to map over. I put them in a Rinkeby, on the Rinkeby network, well, as a key. So let's map over these as a loop, basically. Also, let's use a dot, not a comma, always helpful. And we're going to try and get this get a price, basically. We might just, I think we probably don't need the get a price function, so but you could use it if you wanted to. So here's one I tried earlier. Let's hope it works this time. We've renamed it the same thing. So the info for this will be await chain link price fit methods. I'm going to pull out this data from the info file because, as you saw before, we kind of get this random 0, 1, 2, 3 from that as well. And then I'm going to return what I want. But firstly, I need somewhere to return it to. I've got no state. So let's add some state in here so we have somewhere to return our data to, or save our data in so that we can then display it. So I'm going to use a hook, a state hook, which have been around for a while now. But for those of you that haven't seen them before, this is just an inbuilt function of React these days. Yeah, so the first one is where your data is stored, and this is how you set your data with React hooks. So we're going to have nothing in there to begin with. I've imported that use state hook there. And now I'm going to, because I've got this data back in this, well, have I got it back yet? I've got a promise back. I'm going to return the information as a promise that I want, though, which will be everything that's in the asset. So that asset came from that mappings file we made. So I'm going to keep the name. I'm going to keep the address. I'm going to get the decimals, which I pulled off here. I'm going to get the price, which I pulled off, the description, and that round ID that I was talking about. Now, we don't actually do anything with that round ID, but if you did want to use it, then you could use it there. I'm also going to say that there's no errors in this because you'll see I kind of get around the problem of having a return that doesn't return, but sorry, a promise that reverts. I don't want all of these promises in this mapping to revert just because one does. So that's kind of how I'm going to get around that one. But I'm going to put the catch in. So just in case one of these does throw an error, we need to do some error handling. And for that one, I'm going to return the error handle. So I'm going to say unknown because I still want to be able to display something here. And I'm going to say the error is true here. So let's just have a look and see how this is working, because I feel like I've written a lot of code and we've tested none of it so far. So let's console log out what we get back from this. And I'll give it a header too, so I know where I'm console logging from. So I don't know about you guys, but I end up with a bunch of console logs, which I remove just before I commit everything. Alrighty, so we're getting some data promises here, and they're saying they're fulfilled, which is cool. So it looks like this is all working. So pretty quick and easy to connect with our contract, right? Just a little bit of setup, and then yeah, we're using this contract straight away and getting these price feeds back in real time. Now this is on the Rinkeby network, so it only updates really a few times a day. Like obviously this is a free service we're getting. If you wanted updated prices all the time, that's not so free. But it's still pretty cool. So we're only getting promises at the moment. So the next thing we want to do is resolve those promises before we return this back to our original prices or store it in the price data object there. So I'm just going to resolve those promises. Now, I actually have to look this up, so I'm not sure if you guys have maybe been doing more code than me lately and know it, but instead of using promise.all, which will resolve your promises, but if any of them throw an error, all of them throw an error basically, you can use all settled, and that will send you back the value, which I typed in this catch block here, of any promise that doesn't return, that gets rejected basically. So where's my code? There it is. So all settled, pretty cool new thing that I learned putting this together. So we're gonna all settle the promises, .then resolve promises, we'll call it. Now we're gonna map these to, oops, my bad. Sorry guys, silent coding. So if you noticed before, what I'm doing here with this map function is I'm going through these promises that I made, and we don't really need the state of this promise. We don't really want to save that. So I'm just going through and getting the value off of them because that's really all I care about. It is the value here. So that's why I'm mapping through and only returning the value in this one. So now I can console log that just to verify that that's true as well. Which it should be. So we've got data promises, which is all a bunch of promises. And this one says it's promises too, but it's actually values. So all settled, which is awesome. So we've got our values. So now we can set our state, our price data with those values. Yay. Please feel free to ask any questions as well if I'm going too fast, if I've missed something. Full disclosure, I have had quite a few cold and flu medications today, so I may be veering off track and not explaining myself correctly, so feel free to pull me up on that. All right, but thanks. Great. We've got prices. Now what are we going to do? Well, let's move on to actually doing the fun stuff, which is building that front end to display these prices. So I'm just going to remove this get a price since we don't actually use that. And if you notice, Next.js has kind of got all of these cards come up as one thing. So we don't really want to do that. I actually quickly want to show you a couple of little cool things on Next.js as well while we're here. So I'm just going to change, because I don't want to say this is powered by Vercel. It is. Thank you, Vercel. Appreciate Next.js. It's pretty awesome. Powered by Vercel. And I really don't want my icon to be that either. It's actually not even showing up in Firefox, which is interesting. So I'm going to change my logo to something else. I'm just going to copy some files over, and we'll put them in the public folder. And I'm just going to go down here to the footer, and obviously you could use this as a layout page. So I'm obviously doing this all in one big file, but you could definitely break this down and import them in as different files. And how the pages system works. So that's another cool thing about Next, is it kind of comes with automatic routing. How the pages systems works is if you do, so if you want to go to, you know, pages slash, I don't know, this asset like FUSD, then you just name it that, and it goes to it automatically, which is kind of cool as well. But back on track, let's change our SVG here to think we'll probably need to make this a bit bigger. So I don't know, 150. And we can remove this powered by because it comes in the logo. Awesome. Pretty good. I'm not going to be able to show you how to change the favicon because it's not showing up on Firefox. Someone might have to put a bug report in for that one. I actually did get it to work the other day, but temporarily don't remember. So we'll get it to work for the GitHub that I put in though too. But it just goes in the rel icon equals favicon.icon. So I'll change it anyway. Awesome. And you can change the title as well, obviously. So BrisJS, price feeds. Woo. So I am going to get back to creating a list of these items. So instead of having these all separately, let's create a render list here because we want to loop through those prices feedback that we've got and do that. Oh, so sorry, I just realized that I'm going way over time as well. Really sorry there, guys. I think you probably know how to make a list, so I'll probably not bother with that bit. I knew I was going to go over time. I should have timed this. So let's just try and get one of these prices in. So instead of saying, I'll just change this to BrisJS. And thank you, production manager, for that. Apologies as well. I didn't expect it actually take so much time on Solidity there. So my bad. So let's just change this to say, what did we call it? Price data. We'll check that it's there. Should be price data 0 dot description. And then let's log out the price for that one. And then I'll probably wrap it up as well, because I think you're probably JS aficionados. So you probably know how to create the JS side of this. But if not, I'm happy to come back and finish that another time. So we'll just check that that's there as well. We don't want any errors. Dot prices should be under, right? So let's see if that comes up. Or if we broke it, which we did. Price data 0 is undefined. So we'll just check that price data 0 is defined. Did we set that? Yeah, we did. Did we call it? Need to call that. Let's say it again. This is not the way to do it, but in the interest of time. All right, looks like we have, yeah, I can't put a weight in there, that's why. Did I set that as an object? I'm just gonna. Yeah, that's why I like the home component that we couldn't get working, because you don't have to check for this. You know it's either come up or it hasn't in the beginning. But that's cool. This should be working. I mean, we can see the data here. We're setting the data. So can anyone see what I've done wrong here? Yeah. So we get one price up here. Dots, description. So, So I'm going to go the LD log, the price data. It's still a promise. There we go. That should be better. Forgot the await keyword. That'll do it. So let's try that again.
I think it's Preston.
Sorry?
It's price data rather than data.
I'm a muppet. Awesome. Still not liking this.
Price data is undefined. But what is it logging out above that?
Yeah. Did I spell something wrong?
Oh yeah, it's all lowercase. It's not camel case.
Did I not camel? Ah. Jeez, I mean my spelling. It's going to be the death of me. Oh, it is camel case. Price data. Definitely camel case. Interesting. Maybe I should not be putting this here. You get the idea anyway. So I've got a memory link in my application. Yeah, that's a bit of an odd one. But anyway, I promise you this does work.
Maybe optional property accesses with the question mark.
Yeah, can try that one.
Put question marks everywhere.
Question
Might
mark.
not be their first render.
Yeah, the first render, I don't think it's there.
Okay, I think we've lost Ali.
Oh.
I saw that her laptop threw up a battery warning, so I think we've lost her in terms of actual connectivity. So that's a bit of a shame. We'll have to circle back to some of the Q&A that we've got waiting for her when she comes back online. So yeah, we've got a whole bunch of questions around some of the smart contract, Web3 and Truffle stuff. So if you had a whole bunch of things there that you were waiting for explanation on, we'll have a look at that in a minute. But no matter, the show will go on with Josh Wolf. Would you be so kind to jump in and show us all about BangleJS?
Yeah, what is up, BrisJS? Phoning it in from the future here. Let me see what I can do about sharing my screen. If I click on this button, what happens? It's asking me which one I want to share. Let's try this one. Bam. How's that? Got no idea what everyone's looking at now.
I can see a real life ancient alien god.
Exactly. Big shout out to the Anunnaki, which I discovered is how you pronounce it after I listened to 130 hours of YouTube conspiracy theories about them in preparation for the UFO disclosure from the future. The Haire look to the skies. The once and future overlords of our planet. I, for one, welcome them. My name is Josh Wolf, and I work for Camunda, which is a process automation company. I'm the open source maintainer of the Node.js client for that. Everything that I say in this talk is my own opinion. It's not anything officially for the company, but that is who I work for. So here's my watch. I don't know if you guys can see this. If I, let's go off the screen sharing for a second so we can get the thing. This is my watch. It's the Casio F105 classic timepiece. Has an aftermarket strap on it because I broke the original one. I'm going to start my stopwatch now. Timing. Here we go. I do two things with this watch. I use it at the gym I also, well, obviously use it to tell what time it is, lol. And I also do like a meditation practice every day that I time. So I'm often thinking about my watch and like, can I get it, you know, if I could optimize it like this, I could get it to do that. So I was on Hacker News the other day and this thing showed up. Check this out. Let's go back to sharing the screen. Desktop 1, share. I was on Hacker News. I found this watch, Watchy, open source e-paper watch powered by an ESP32. Looks pretty cool. You know, it's got like an e-paper, like a Kindle screen. So, you know, it just updates it and then it doesn't have to keep refreshing it all the time. Open source, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's got Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Arduino, MicroPython, ESP IDF. So I was like, I have to get one of these. So I ordered it. They're still making them because like they're still inventing this thing. Anyway, I was reading through the docs. Somewhere in there was a comparison chart comparing this watch with other watches. Bunch of different features, you know, like so many different parameters you can compare them on. And then there was one, it says runs JavaScript. I was like, why is this watch not on my wrist right now? So let me see if I can get this camera to work. I got my PHX. Other camera. Okay, let's see what we can do here. We have the technology, we can make this work. Okay. That is not a watch. Haha, it kind of is, but this is a watch. Here it is, it's the Bangle JS. This thing. Bangle JS, it's a watch that runs JavaScript like all watches should, just the way the gods intended it. The Anunnaki, they're back. They want JavaScript running on the watches. This thing is waterproof up to 10 meters underwater, which you'll probably need if there's like another epic flood of the planet. This doesn't run the ESP. This thing runs an ARM Cortex M4 processor. 64K of RAM. More than enough, well, 640K, but 64K RAM is more than enough for any watch. And it's got a bunch of different things in it, like a GPS, heart rate monitor, 3-axis accelerometer, magnetometer, so it's got like a compass in it, a little vibration motor, and a 350 milliamp hour battery, which it says does 1 week standby time. I've like run it for 2-3 days at a time. Yeah, and it runs, it costs like 59 pounds. 58 pounds or 45 pounds in volume, whatever that means, 10 of them, I guess. And it runs Espruino JavaScript interpreter on it, which is kind of like an ES5 level, but you know, you can transpile to it. Let me see if we can get it on the screen here, and I'll show you what it looks like when I reboot it. Rebooting your watch, that's what I'm talking about. I hold down buttons 1 and 2 together for 6 seconds. Have I got both buttons? Maybe I've only got one. Let's try it like this. There we go. 2 buttons at the same time. 1 and 2. And rebooting. Look at that. Boom. Reboots. You can write your own watch faces for it. I had this idea that I want to write like an integration with our with Kamunda's cloud platform. The thing with this watch is it doesn't have Wi-Fi in it. It only has this type of Bluetooth called low energy Bluetooth, which it's supported in JavaScript as web Bluetooth. So let me show you how you get apps on and off this thing. It's not like a app store where it connects to Wi-Fi or anything like that. You use this thing called the Bangle Js App Loader. And this Bangle Js App Loader, checks its time, 4 minutes and 9 seconds. It's a web app that's just hosted in GitHub Pages, and you just click on connect. I'm running Google Chrome here. I usually use like one of those super paranoid browsers, but this one has the web Bluetooth working. So, you know, clicking on there opens this little dialog. It's the web Bluetooth thing. It's scanning to see if it can find the watch. Sometimes it kind of helps if I turn the watch face on, like press one of the buttons to make it come on. It's a little bit finicky getting this thing to connect, I have noticed. So we're going to have some problems with connecting to it, and that's all part of the experience of owning one of these JavaScript powered watches. Okay, so yeah, really doesn't want it. Let's try refreshing the page. Let's see if that does it. And then I'll click on connect again. BangleJS.com wants to pair. It's scanning. It's looking for any Bluetooth low energy devices like the watch. See if it can find them. And it can't. So there you go. A real Millennium Falcon moment with this watch. It's an amazing piece of equipment. The other thing is that there's this Espruino IDE. Let's see if this can work. If I select a port, Web Bluetooth, Bluetooth low energy. It's going to try to connect here from Chrome. So you can see it showing up in here. So I click on pair. It's connecting to it. Then as long as it doesn't drop the connection, which it does pretty frequently, it's going to open a terminal here on the left-hand side where I can run JavaScript on the watch. Nope, it got a little bit further than the last one. Let's try refreshing this page, see what happens. And try it again. Let me see if I can
Do you need to enter a particular pairing mode on the watch?
No,
no,
you do not, theoretically. Let's like put it here so you can see it not connecting live on camera. So this is one interesting thing about it is like Web Bluetooth is kind of similar to some other feature in the browser that it can only be initiated by a user interaction. So you can't just like on page load connect to a device. And then the other thing is, as soon as you like click anywhere away from the window, in the window, it'll just shut the whole thing down. It's like Web Bluetooth is apparently actually a real security risk surface area. So even if I turn the watch on here, you can see there's a little Bluetooth icon here that goes blue when something is connected. Okay, so it's not connecting with the thing either. So let me show you it now, not connecting using Node.js. Okay, so in Node.js, there's like an Espruino package, which you can npm i-g to install. And let me get back to Google Chrome, and then I'll show you the package in npm.js, npmjs.com. I mean, the thing that's so great about this watch is that, like, even if it's not even connecting, the fact that it runs JavaScript, I mean, it doesn't even have to tell the time. As long as it runs JavaScript on it, it's like at least 11% superior to any other watch. So if I search in here, you can find this package, this Espruino package. So it's like got a CLI that you can use to connect, and it's also like a package that you can require. So I've been getting into like this low-level Web Bluetooth kind of stuff to try and figure out this connection kind of, these kind of connection issues. This is not the first time I've run into these connection issues, obviously. So if I go, there's that Espruino package. There's another one as well, which is called Web Bluetooth, which has got low-level kind of stuff in it. And I grabbed the test code, and if I run it in here, let me just make this a bit bigger. Let's see if I can get it to do something like this. So I run tbtts, and this just kind of like scans for Bluetooth devices. So it can see the device, and then if I select it by pressing 1, it's connecting, and then it kind of enumerates the services that are available on the watch. In theory, at least. Let me try rebooting the watch again and see if that does it. Let's try it again. So the watch is definitely up and running. No devices found. One connecting. And two not working. So there you have it, folks. That is, you know, all the joys of debugging JavaScript and connectivity issues now with your watch. And in the meantime, if I stop sharing, my... Oh, that's interesting. It's gone to that. Let's switch back to here. My Casio F105 has now hit 11 minutes and 7 seconds. So this one here is obviously a lot more reliable than that one, but it doesn't run JavaScript, so meh. There you have it.
Thanks so much for trying, Josh. I know the web Bluetooth stack has a few different moving parts. I often find the actual Bluetooth drivers in the system to be a bit of a pain as well. So quite
super
often,
experimental.
Yeah, well, it must be some pretty new firmware as well. Do you know when they brought this one out?
This thing came out in 2019, actually, so it's been out for a while. I mean, I've had it working and then had it not working, and you know, really what we've missed out on seeing here today is my set interval code running on a watch in JavaScript. But, you know, whatever. I'll be back with another watch. I got that other one still coming.
Cool. All right. We'll get some Q&A just very quickly. This. Okay. Cool. Cool. We do have a couple of questions for you. So we've got, is the Bangle limited to watch faces? But I think that's immediately answered by the second question, which is what kind of apps are there available? You're on mute, mate.
Unmute. Yeah, they're mostly apps around like GPS waypoints, heart rate monitor. There is a StrongLifts 5x5 app for the phone that someone's written. Astrology, like astronomy apps using the GPS to where you look to see different things. That's pretty much what it can do. Yeah, they're mainly around kind of personal health and movement and timing. Like if you do something that has particular, you could put a Pomodoro timer or something and have it buzz to tell you to take a break, that kind of stuff.
That's cool. That's good fun. Yeah, the Esprino modules, I worked with little dev boards that kind of work like an Arduino or whatever, just to be able to write the JavaScript syntax, which is, there you go, you got one right there. It's a cut down version of the JavaScript language stack, so it's you can interact with that familiar syntax and then also have it run on low-level hardware, which is really quite cool. So thanks for showing us that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and that's it for questions for that. So what we might do is say thank you very much, and we'll circle back around to Ali again. We'll see if she's available. There she is. Hi, Ali.
Yeah, rookie error, but I guess my computer knew I was having some struggles, just thought they'd get me off stage. Yeah, rookie error.
21st century version of the hook that takes you off the stage, is that?
Exactly. Battery low and you're off. Fade away.
That's it. No worries at all. No problem. So we'll go top to bottom. We've got a couple in here. I mean, they some of these questions sort of answer themselves as talks proceed, but they get dropped in here as well. So one of these is, are there a lot of these kinds of test nets that can be developed against?
Yes.
Or is it just sort of the ones that you mentioned?
Yep. So pretty much any blockchain network will generally have a test net with it. So there's a lot of different versions of blockchain. So the main one you've probably heard of is Ethereum, because it's been around so long. But there's also Binance Chain, there's a Polygon network. There's Eagle, there's Hyperledger is another blockchain, and pretty much all of them will have a test net to go along with it, because people need to be able to test and develop their apps, right? It's a developer's field day, so yep, there are.
Makes sense. Cool. I guess that leads into the next one, which is so Truffle, as the platform that's there, looks like it provides a lot of capability. Can you explain its benefits to us noobs?
The benefits are it does abstract all of those configuration annoyances away. So pretty powerful tool suite for doing that. It also, the Truffle suite itself also has something called a Ganache CLI. So instead of what that CLI does is basically creates a fake wallet for you. So instead of using a real one and deploying to the Rinkeby network, you can just set it up all locally on your machine. And have it connecting that way, the same way as you would with, say, a Node.js backend and your local front end. So you can also do it that way. So yep, is the answer to that one.
Cool, yeah. All right, what do we got here? Have you implemented any other example smart contracts? I think this anonymous questioner is keen to understand solved use cases that we can use in JS. Other examples.
Solved use cases. So one of the big benefits of, I guess, blockchain technology is that it's a ledger that can't be mutated. So everyone can see it. Everyone knows what it's doing. If certain conditions are met, these smart contracts deploy, right? It's code as trust, basically. So, I mean, obviously one of the biggest benefits is in finance at the moment. That's where a lot of the action is happening. It's also happening in betting, because obviously you can take away the middlemen there. You bet on something, that outcome happens, then, you get your money or you lose your money, whatever way that one went. But there's a lot of tech for good solutions coming out around this as well. Charity contracts, can't think of anything else off the top of my head, but there is a few. And logistics, that's a big use case as well. So along with IoT, super big use case there for tracking sustainability of food, for example. And we just ran Core for Code here at IBM, and that's a big tech for good hackathon, and one of the winners created an extension for your browser that goes on top of those logistics tracking blockchains, and you can go, say, to your Woolworths site and check that that's sourced sustainably, or your local fashion site, no names, and check that those jeans you want to buy aren't made in a sweatshop, basically. So it was a really, really cool idea to make it really easy. So yeah, there's a lot you can do with smart contracts. The sky's the limit.
Very nice. I think the next question that was there was, can you do this with more than just price data? So what kind of data can we process?
You totally can. So price data is one of the easiest ones just to get through as a fairly new starter to this, which is why I thought it'd be like an easy demo. Turns out JavaScript got me. No, just kidding. Yeah, you can actually, one of the benefits of Chainlink, and that's why I use them, is that their main focus is on getting off-chain data onto chains in a trustable manner, so and decentralized manner, obviously. So bringing any API from the web to your decentralized apps, which is really cool. So yeah, any data you want into your Solidity contracts, which could trigger those, IoT logistics chains, for example, or the weather data says this happened in a certain area, then there's your insurance contract. So yeah, lots of ideas.
Very cool. I think, okay, so let me try and get this one right. Can you explain a bit more about where the functional domains bridge between where Web3 ends and Truffle begins? I guess it's just what are the loci of functionality between those two packages?
So Truffle's a set of tooling. It basically makes your config easy. It doesn't actually host anything. Where I'm actually hosting, and I kind of skimmed over that, is on the Rinkeby network through a provider that's called Infura. And you can I've probably got it up here. I won't show you. Anyway, it's a provider called Infura. And I'm basically, deploying my application to this, I guess, cloud, but it's not a cloud. It's a blockchain service. So I can then drag that information back from that server. So it's called Infura, if you want to look into that a bit more. So Truffle is really just a set of tools to help you config your smart contracts more than, and make it easy. It's like Create React App, but for Solidity contracts, I guess.
Yeah. And so then Web3 acts as sort of a JavaScript interface to some of the other things to
yeah, so
handle the
Web3
contract side of it.
yes, Web3, sorry, yeah, good question. So Web3 is specifically a library for Ethereum, for Ethereum based contracts, and it implements those. So they've all got specifications. The Ethereum network's got a specification, so EIP number after that, the same as you would in engineering, or the same as you're looking up docs in computer science as well. So it's basically a library wrapper around that, which provides those functionalities. So it knows you're interacting with those kind of contracts, and this is the available options for you. Yeah.
Cool. So the smart contract was getting the network nodes to fetch the latest price for you, a form of remote processing. I think they wanted some clarification.
Yeah, so you can look up the Chainlink docs for exactly how they do that, and they do have like a basic request model on how they do that. But they basically get in a whole heap of different APIs. So wherever that price data can possibly come from, and the same with any other sort of data. So you've got 2 different weather feed stations, and you can feed both of those in and get like a kind of source of truth around that. And they're hosted on a bunch of decentralized nodes. So if one goes down, you've still got a bunch of others to keep the app running, the same as you would, load balance your cloud network. So yeah, it gathers those prices. It does some really cool things. You can have a look at the white paper for Chainlink to verify truth on a network as well. So to make sure that you're not, deliberately being a malicious player and sending in the wrong data for whatever purposes. And then, yeah, it feeds you what everyone's agreed to as the truth. Yeah. But yeah, it's acting in the background. It's a pretty powerful background package though.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, that's it for the questions. Thanks very much again for running us through all of that. I think we've got tons of cool examples to have a look at, and as you mentioned, verifying truth on there. Like I could see this working out really well for maybe some anti-cheat mechanisms in online games or something like that there as well.
Yeah,
so that can be kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure. No, good.
Especially in the browser world.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
All right, thank you so much for having me. I hope you guys learned something. And yeah, the files will be up on my GitHub, and I'll have a README on that, on how you can run it if you want to explore more.
Much appreciated. Thank you. All good. All right, everyone. We're now wrapping. That's everything tonight. As we've seen, live demoing and live coding can be stressful. So thanks again to all of our presenters tonight. It's a tough gig, but we're very, very grateful that everyone volunteers and does it. It can be incredibly rewarding for both sides. So thank you very much for everyone, and for everyone's patience on the stream as well. Thank you for your questions. It's been cool to see the chat go off. It's been good to see the Slidos come in. It's always fun to get everyone's interaction there as well. I think I did get a message there from Josh. He did restart the computer's Bluetooth stack and got some better results. So we'll have to do a little cameo when he next presents it in BrisJS, and we'll see it happening on the watch directly again as well. But it's nice that we can kind of run JavaScript in so many different places. If anyone's keen on JavaScript robotics, there's a huge community around that as well. NodeBots is a really big thing as well. There's plenty of cool stuff you can do with JavaScript on hardware, and there's also translation layers and protocols that can be converted from JavaScript instructions over to things like Fermata over to hardware. So there's cool things you can do with JavaScript, and that's what we want to see more of at BrisJS. So let me just quickly throw up the closing slides so you can see some details. And that would be it. That's what we're showing. So yeah, thank you very much. If you've got any feedback at all, I'm going to leave open a poll on our Slido, just to give us some tips if you're interested in suggesting anything, or you longed for something on the stream, or a better way to give feedback, or whatever it might be. It's open to record. Thank you very much for that. And yeah, again, just a quick shout out to say, please consider doing a talk for next month. So we're really only, 4 weeks away, 3 weeks away. We want to try and get this announced pretty early. So if you have some ideas for the coming months, you can also, we can schedule it ahead of time. There's absolutely no problem there as well. It's preferred even. So if you've got, if you know somebody else who you think would be a great presenter, dob them in as well, send them away. I think that's how we got Torsten involved, and thank you again to him for his first talk. You did one wonderfully. So yeah, thanks to the community for sourcing these things. It's always great. So yeah, I've been Kevin Van Der Beeken, and this has been BrisJS, and I hope we'll see you again very soon. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Epic. Thanks for putting it on, Kevin.
Very welcome, everyone. And
Awesome.
we are offline.